Our toilet now van's a Thetford C260. To use it, there's a handle underneath here which just pushes from side to side. Inside the, don't panic, it's clean, there's nothing in it. Inside the toilet itself is the, you can see the blade, which is the top of the actual cassette. This is not part of the internal of the toilet, it's part of the external or the tank underneath, which is called the cassette. Moving that handle from side to side opens that blade and gets you access into the innards of the cassette, which is where all the good stuff goes. And then when you're finished doing what you're doing, you close it off. When you flush the toilet, you go to use the toilet, you open that blade up, and then you do what you need to do, and then you flush it, and then you close that blade. When the water dribbles down the side, what's left in there after you've flushed it will drop down there and it will sit on top of that blade, and there's a rubber seal around the top of it. We'll take the cassette out in a minute and you'll see what that is. And that is where the water sits, and in the article where it runs out and drops all over your hand, that's the water that we're talking about. So we'll go outside and we'll take the cassette out and we'll have a closer look. Now, to remove the cassette out of the van, it's important that inside the blade is closed. The blade always needs to be closed because without it being closed, it won't come out. The cassette won't come out. So we've got hand sanitizer sitting in there and some gloves that we can use if and when we want to empty it. So we lift up that little handle, there's a little locking area there, and then it will just slide out. As long as that blade is closed inside, it will slide out. And now what we'll do is I'll have a look at the blade, the sliding cover, and the functions of the toilet, and then I'll take it apart and you can see what's inside it and what sort of things you would be in your best interests to over at certain periods of time to pull apart and clean. Well, these are the working parts of the toilet cassette. This is the pour out spout here, which turns around, takes that cap off. There's measuring indicators on that cap there, so you can put in however much toilet chemical or whatever you want to, whatever you use in the toilet. There's a measuring cup inside that. This is the sliding cover on top of the seal. It slides off by hand. When you put the toilet in and out of the Caravan, this sliding cover goes backwards and forwards and exposes that seal and exposes the blade. So when you take the cassette out of the Caravan, that's covered up. I'm not 100% sure why they do that, other than to hide something that some people might find offensive. I don't know. It doesn't form any or perform any practical purpose other than covering up that seal. Going back to what happened inside, the water's dribbling down. This is what you see down inside that hole in the toilet. All you see is that blade. You don't see that rubber seal around the outside. And the water dribbles down. It's now sealed. The blade is lifted up against the bottom of that rubber. It's now sealed. So the water will run down. It will sit inside that rubber seal on top of that blade. When you pull the cassette out of the Caravan, the seal cover is going to slide across, and you're not going to see that liquid sitting in there. So what will happen is when you tip it up, the water will come out. It will come out from underneath there, and it will go onto your hand when you're holding onto this handle. And you can see here there's a stain coming down there, which is an indication of where the water has dribbled out in the past. So what I do before I empty before I even open the lid of the dump point, I'll take this off, which is the cap, and I'll take this off, and I'll take it out, and I'll put them to the side, away from the dump area, and before I even open the dump lid. What I'll do with this here, this is the handle which is operated by that lever inside when the cassette is inserted. It turns to the side and opens that blade up and lifts it up. When it closes, it lifts up and seals against that rubber. So what I do is take that cover off. There's always water sitting in there. Quickly just open it a little bit, let the water off, close it back up again, and then we're ready to empty the toilet. This button up here is the air release. So you hold that button down. It allows air to rush in as the liquid and so forth is coming out of your pour spout. If you don't push that button, you'll get like emptying a bottle of Coke. It will glug out and then that's when you get splashback, and none of us want that. So you push that button. There's a area under here that you can put your hand, hold it there, lift it up, push that button, and then simply tilt, and out she'll come. And it'll come out in one continuous flow, and then you're done. And then, so clean it all out, rinse it. So what we'll do is I'll tip it up like that, put the hose in there, rinse it around, give it a light shake, not a huge, don't want to be a violent shake, full of water, put a bit of detergent in there, rinse it out with the detergent, wash it out with the detergent, and then rinse that out a couple of times so there's no suds left in there. That goes back on after the dump point's closed, and this cover just slides back on, and we're ready to go back into the Caravan, and we're done. 1.5 litres of water, and we're ready to go again. So what I'll do now is I'll take this this section apart here, and you can see what's inside it and what areas that you should be cleaning. All right, on top of the toilet, this section comes out so it can be cleaned and serviced. This pour spout, if you turn it all the way around, it will actually come out, and you can clean that as well. There's a rubber O-ring on the bottom here which you can oil. We use olive oil, just the same stuff that you use to eat with, cook with. That goes back on there. Don't use vegetable oil. Only if you're going to use that type of oil, or like a silicone grease or something like that, only use olive oil. On this section here, there's an arrow on this central round bit, and there's 2 circles, one open circle, one closed circle, to indicate that it's locked. So the arrow's lining up with the closed one, indicating that it's locked off, straight, so it's supposed to be where it's supposed to be. If we turn that around, it might be a bit stiff because it's got an O-ring in there. If it hasn't been lubricated, it will be a little bit stiff. Turn that arrow to the circle, and it will just lift out. And that is the entire blade mechanism. And that's how it works. Pull the cover off, and that's all it does. Turn that handle, it spins that blade around, and then lifts it up, pushes it against that seal, and it creates a seal, so it stops the smells coming out inside the van. This is clean. We've cleaned this. It's been disinfected and cleaned and ready to use. So I thought I'd do this before we use it again. Give it a wash out inside. Make sure that it's clean. Put some disinfectant in there, shake it around. If you can get in there with a little brush, like an old sink brush, before you're throwing it out, is not a bad idea. And then we lubricate these seals here. And in between, at the moment I can do it, you want to be washing your hands, of course. So what we'll do is get a rubber glove that we leave in the toilet area anyway, pour a bit of olive oil onto that glove, and just run it around that seal. All around that seal there, inside the bottom here. Let it go all around this one, around the outside of here, and then same with the pour spout, and then that's nicely lubricated, and it's going to protect the rubber, and it'll give you better longevity out of the toilet. It clips back in again, sits back in where the open circle is, and it just spins around. Line it up with the closed circle, put the slide back in, sliding cover, and it's ready to go back in. It's cleaned, it's lubricated, and it's ready to go. Make sure that thing is in line with the toilet, because that means that the blade is closed. If it's lined up the other way with the blade open, it will not line up with the mechanism inside that the area where the cassette slides in. Because it has to marry up with the mechanism that's attached to the handle inside to open and close from inside. So it's got to be in that position straight through. The seal cover is attached and pushed right up, and we're all ready to go. It's clean, it's been lubricated, it's been looked after, and it will last you a very, very long time. Couple of things before we put the cassette back in. You'll see right up the end of the cavity inside where the cassette lives is a commercial toilet biscuit. They're the things that for blokes, they'll be all over it because you see them in every urinal. For the ladies, it's a toilet stinky toilet lolly that sits in the bottom of urinals in commercial premises, hotels and things like that, and it puts off a perfume scent. So we got a commercial toilet biscuit, cut the plastic trim off it. It's new, it hasn't come out of a pub urinal, and we shoved it up the end there, and it just smells nice in that cavity all the time as a result of that. The other thing you'll notice inside your toilet, inside your cavity where the cassette goes, is this little square pad in the side here with this funny looking round circle in it. If you click it off, there's nothing inside it. It's a bit of an indentation, and there's some bits and bobs in there. It looks like it should do something, but it clearly doesn't go anywhere and doesn't do anything. So what it's actually for is in the bottom of the toilet, in the bottom of the cassette, there's a plastic area here which pushes in and out. So when you slide the cassette back into the cavity there, what will happen is that little area there will slide over the top of this little area here, and what it does is it lifts open inside a valve, an air valve inside. So it's like a cantilevered. So you push on this end and it opens up the other end, and it exposes the air from the inside of the cassette down to this area underneath here. So then what you can get is you can buy an electric fan which cuts into this area here, and it's an accessory that is not very common in Australia. I'm not sure how common they are overseas. They're about $250 for a small fan unit. It attaches into the loom that's already in here, the wiring. You take the sticker off the top of the toilet inside where the flush button is, and you put a new circuit board in there, and there's I think there's a second button and some extra lights. So then what happens is when the toilet's back together and running, when you flush the toilet, that fan comes on and it draws air from inside the van down through the open hole and into that cavity, into the cassette cavity, and then out through that small pipe, in through that fan area, through a charcoal filter, and out through the bottom of the van. So there is no smell that comes up back inside the van through that hole. I'm led to believe it works wonderfully well. It's quite a mission to actually cut the bottom out of the van and the bottom out of that toilet, that receiver inside here, down in the wide area here, and fit it all up. Apparently the loom and everything, it's very plug and play, but there's a bit of hands-on to get it working. I know one person that's got one. They say it's great. The reviews that they've given are fantastic, but I don't know whether I'd bother going down that path. Once the toilet canister's back in, we shove our gloves back up in here. We've got our disinfectant, goes back in that little hole there. Wash our hands after we've emptied the toilet, close the lid, and we're ready to go.